But he had a tendency for, dead animals was showing up around Jeffrey Dahmer all the time. He was dissecting them. What is going on with the serial killing of dogs in the Lauren Boebert neighborhood?
Well, a little bit of background. Obviously, Colorado's a ranching state, and ranchers and farmers are very protective of their assets, their livestock. And so it is not against the law in Colorado to shoot what you would call a menacing or malicious dog, or vicious dog, I'm sorry, menacing or vicious, because, they're dogs eating up cattle and cows and goats and pigs, and
Sure.
That's people's income. So bear that in mind. That's the culture there, and I understand it completely. I grew up in Iowa in a rural place.
I had to shoot a coyote once in Arizona. This happens.
If they're coming after your cattle,
yep.
You know what? And you can't get them to stop. You got to shoot them because that's part of their assets, part of their income. So I respect that. However, the Boeberts seem to have a problem with dogs and their goats. They have a small herd of goats, I think 10 to 12 goats on their property. And the neighborhood dogs seem to be attracted to them. And in October of 2021, evidently 2 dogs were shot and killed on her property, according to police reports. Those were a neighbor's dog, and she was upset about it and went to the police, and they couldn't do anything because evidently the dogs did injure the goats. And again, Colorado law allows somebody to shoot a vicious dog. So that happened in October 2021. Fast forward to August 17, 2022. A 21-year-old community college student has several dogs at her parents' house that is immediately next to Boebert's. Her husky puppy got loose and was shot dead on her property. Now, Boebert claims it wasn't her. It was a guy that takes care of the goats, and it was at 5 o'clock in the morning, when Boebert and her husband were both home. So I'm not sure why she's calling this guy and won't go out and do it herself. But anyway, this young woman's puppy was killed, and she posted about it on Facebook. She posted a whole account. And this, we didn't have anything to do with that at all. I didn't even know who this person was. We'd heard about the dog killing, but she finally came forward and posted a long Facebook post, and it went viral. So much so that she had to take it down because she was getting nasty emails, nasty calls.
Yeah, I actually contacted her for an interview, and when I read through the thread there, it was full of threats and intimidation, all kinds of stuff, man. It was real, yeah.
Yeah, and she's a 21-year-old woman. She just turned 21, by the way. So, who needs that in their life? And then the next morning, parents wake up and there's garbage had been dumped on the lawn, so somebody's taken retribution. So she took the post down and didn't want to deal with it. She, come to find out, she had pled guilty to having a dog on the loose, and settled that with the DA there. But and then August 17, that was when her husky was killed. And then come to find out on Sunday, October 16th, last Sunday, 2022, Jason Boebert calls into the cops saying there's another husky on the property. And the neighbor guy who takes care of the goats ran over evidently and saw the husky, but he wasn't in the pen with the goats, and he wasn't biting anything. He was just running around the property. Well, he's running around the property because the Boebert children like this dog. They play with the dog. They play with the other husky that was killed. So it's a known dog to the Boeberts, but they shot the one on the 17th of August. Fortunately, the puppy on the 16th, another husky of this college woman, was not shot. But Jason, here's the weird thing. Jason calls it in. The caretaker comes over, doesn't see anything going on. The cops show up, interview both Jason and the caretaker. Neither of them's stories align. The officer says that the timelines were not consistent. And then Jason provides some photos of scabbed up goats, injuries. But supposedly it happened the night before. And the caretaker says that none of the goats were injured. So Jason's providing pictures of goats from who knows when, probably back in 2021, as evidence why this husky should be shot on the property. And then the press gets photos, those same photos from Boebert's staff. I know this is convoluted, so I'm trying to...
No, I'm with you.
trying to straighten it out here.
Yeah.
So Boebert's staff then provides those pictures that Jason provided on October 16th to the press is justification for the killing of the husky in August.
Gotcha. And that husky in August was a puppy, you said?
Well, yeah, he was I don't know how old the dog was. There are pictures of it on Facebook, on our website. Huskies are not generally known to be menacing dogs. And the evidence of that is the Boebert children played with both of these huskies over and over again, invited them over to their house, to the point that this young woman had to call Jason Boebert and ask her not to ask the kids to bring the dog over. But, they shoot it on the 17th with absolutely no remorse. This poor woman posts about it on Facebook, and their response is to attack her. She and her DC buddies, it's her fault. She never should have let that dog loose. It was, biting her goats. Well, we don't know that's true because they released fake photos, or photos that weren't tied to the August incident. And instead of being neighborly again and saying, listen, let's work this out. How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? As an adult, decent Christian neighbor would do. Instead, she sicks the dogs, pun intended, on this poor college woman to the point that she's got to take the post down and essentially go into hiding in her college campus. So that's the kind of people we're dealing with in Silk, Colorado, the Boebert family. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's I can maybe think once in your life you have to put down a dog, a rabid dog. What was that movie?
Old Yeller?
Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird. That one, like once in your life, you got to put down a dog. Old Yeller I never saw, but maybe once in your life, maybe, God forbid, two dogs. But listen, come on, this is outrageous. I mean, if you're saying so, there's a picture of him as a puppy. He looked like a puppy to me. It's just and also too, wasn't there issues too with the Boebert's dogs getting loose and causing problems?
Oh God, yes. There were police reports over and over about her dogs being missing, and she would call the cops to help them find the dogs.
Really?
In several instances, lo and behold, she'd call back and say, "Oh, they just showed back up." So, yeah, I mean, let's put this in perspective. You've got multiple dogs being whacked on her property. At some point, don't you think you would do something about it? I mean, maybe put up a better fence, maybe electrify the fence around the goats. Maybe get rid of the goats. Why are the goats so important if, it's causing so many problems in the neighborhood? So it just begs the question, again, I respect ranchers and folks that work with their hands and raise livestock. They shouldn't have to put up with the neighborhood dog running in there and bothering their income.
It just seems like the solution to every problem is to reach for a gun,
With her, it's to blame it on somebody else first, and then have somebody else shoot it. I mean, that's the other thing is, she's claiming she didn't do it, which I will accept. But it's her property, it's her land, and you can't tell me somebody's just going to walk on there and on her property and shoot him on their own. She's asking somebody to go do this.
Yeah, possibly hired a hitman.
And here's the worst part of
I
it.
mean, look at this.
This young woman is from a Mexican-American family. And so, her dislike for brown people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go much further than that, but darn well she has zero respect for these neighbors.
Couple of things. Now, back to this mailbox incident. When you first contacted the sheriff's department about that, they gave you some misinformation, didn't they?
That's true. It's just the weirdest thing. It's almost movie-esque because we heard about it again from a member of law enforcement. Heard about it on the radio. Heard some traffic in the radio and the address of the Boeberts, and sent us an email saying, "Listen, you may want to look into this the next day." So I called the public information officer, a guy named Walt Stowe in Garfield County, Colorado, and his job is to liaise with the public and the press and provide facts. Well, the guy, I talked to him on the phone, and then I emailed him, and he said the Boeberts were not involved and that the neighbors worked it all out. Well, that's clearly not the case because the neighbors are still pissed off to this day. And then I followed up with an email just saying, hey, Walt, thank you very much for the conversation. I want to just reconfirm what we discussed. And he responded, yeah, that's all correct. The Boeberts weren't involved. Everything was resolved amicably among the neighbors. And I kind of let it go for 3 or 4 days. And then the law enforcement guy said, David, you got it all wrong, man. You got to get the police report and the audio from the 9/11 tapes. And so I did that, and I listened to it. And then I called Walt back and said, Walt, what's going on here? And he wouldn't return calls. He wouldn't respond to emails.
Wow.
And then I called the neighbor who was quoted in the police report, and we had a 20-minute pleasant conversation again, which is on our website. Actually, I think that one's on fireboebert.com. But we had a conversation, and the truth came out again. And so we blew it up. And again, published this is all legal. We get it through public record requests. We got the 9/11 tapes. We got the police traffic. We got the police report. And lo and behold, it was 180 degrees from what Walter Stowe is telling me and telling the public, that this was no big deal. It got all worked out in the end.
Now, what about, do the cops over there wear body cameras?
They did not at the time. They have recently implemented, Colorado law doesn't require them until, I think, July of 2023.
Gotcha.
But they have finally started putting them on the officers.
Now, you mentioned before this young lady, the college student whose puppy was killed. She received a lot of retribution and harassment, stuff like that. What about these mailbox people? Have they been attacked too as well?
I don't know. I haven't. He's a pretty tough old bird. He is not of retirement age. He's I think a electrical or plumbing contractor. So he's a little tougher. I don't think he takes any guff from these guys.
Gotcha.
I haven't followed up, but I am. You know what? I think I'm going to send all those neighbors Fire Boebert T-shirts.
Oh, good idea.
They deserve something from having to put up with all this crap. And
No, we were talking before about Jason Boebert's previous conviction for exposing himself to a minor. Lauren Boebert, too, has several convictions, right? Now, isn't one of those a domestic violence conviction?
Well, when they met, they had a very tempestuous relationship, evidently. At one point, there was a domestic situation where she called the cops on him, and he was cited. I think he actually, again, spent a couple days in jail, was arrested, and then he came back to the home, evidently, and she started beating on him, and he called the cops this time, and she was cited for domestic abuse. I don't think she spent any time in jail. Maybe she did. But she was booked and arrested, booked, and handcuffed and purple walked on that one. And then subsequently, she's put a truck in a ditch, evidently after drinking. She's been cited for children not wearing seatbelts, it just goes